Hi, and welcome back to Continual. If you can't tell, we're about to drive a stake through someone's heart. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite arcs within the Buffyverse. I'm your host, Jim Nettles, and tonight we bring you a few more super fans who, well, we're going to see exactly who we're going to dig up from the dead this time. So, Carol, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I am a frequent continual panelist and a huge Buffy fan from day one.
Jenny?
Hi, I'm Gini Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series for Dell Books. I also write under a variety of other pen names and in all lengths and genres. And I was actually late to the Buffy show. My daughter was watching it in reruns, and I sat down and watched it with her. And then ultimately, we bought it, and we do rewatches, reasonably regularly for it and Angel. So definitely a late to the game, but a fan.
Lee?
Hi, I'm Lee Martindale. I'm a short story writer and an anthology editor. I also own Harp Haven Publishing. I was late to the party as well. You can blame Elizabeth Moon for my having discovered Buffy. She and a bunch of folks were down at her ranch, waxing ecstatic about it. And I'm sitting there going, Buffy? I'd seen the movie. And I finally surrendered and watched an episode and never looked back.
Well, so I started watching Buffy. I had seen the movie because, again, I if nothing else, I love a big dark pun. What's better than that picture of Buffy the cheerleader going out and hunting vampires? I had
I
written
loved the movie. I'm going to defend the movie. I loved the movie. Go on.
the movie had its strong points. But again, and it was fun. It didn't take itself seriously, and it was just meant to be fun. And I was traveling, and so it was one of those things of when you're on site and you're working and okay, great, you're going back to the hotel, let me just sit down for an hour to decompress. I'm in that mid-20s range, and it was like, all right, great, let me see what ridiculousness is on. I'll go for the joke. I expected the series to last 3 or 4 episodes, and then they'd kill it, like, well, it was Fox, right? So, but they didn't, and you got in and you got hooked. And I think much like miniseries, there was a lot of ups and downs, but there was a reason it still has a fan base all these years later. If we look at the spin-offs, the different properties that have come out of it, a few attempts to revitalize it, all this good stuff, it's because at its heart, it was a fun series that didn't take itself too seriously except when it had to. So, Carol, I'm going to come to you on this. Which story arc is your number one top kind of big
Number one.
favorite?
Oh dear.
You got to pick one. I know it's like picking your child.
All right.
What's that big arc that when you go and you say this defines Buffy?
Oh, I'm really torn because I have the more romantic one, but then there's kind of the one where it really concerns more about creating who you are, which I think is a real big theme in Buffy. From the day one when we see her as this, you know, kind of fluffy brained, bouncy girl who yet has the destiny laid on her and has had her first round with it. Where they account for the movie that, she destroyed her first school and knows about all the dark stuff out there. To the end where, she has been through the wars and is now like a finely crafted sword where she has been honed and she has been strengthened. And so there's a lot of development, all through the series that goes on with her. And I think to me, the best arc that goes along with that is the overriding arc for Spike, where Spike goes through his own developments where he's just bloodthirsty, happy-go-lucky. He hasn't seen a person he didn't like to bite. Death and destruction, but always with style. And his love for Drusilla, and yet as time goes on, and even without a soul, he is drawn to Buffy, and then actually goes through the torment of getting a soul, and then has to deal with that until really his ultimate redemption at the very end. And that huge overriding multi-season arc of his development, I think, is the most that echoes hers and lets us grow along with him, with both of them. We get to grow along with him and watch his continually evolving persona and his continually evolving view of the world and himself in it. And, still doesn't mean he doesn't miss, biting a nubile neck or two, but, ultimately the trade-off for him is worth it, and it's just always, James Marsters just kills that role. And he is always funny, heartbreaking, gross, like both the poetry and the blood sucking. And, he is always extremely watchable and draws you in. And so I think in counterpart to Buffy's growth and acceptance of who she is as the Slayer and a person, we see Spike's evolving from a monster to not a human, but, a humanistic being with a soul. And that it's just, every time I watch, it's always a fascinating arc to me.
He gets a great redemption, but he can always go evil again. I mean, I can.
But they leave him on that, they kind of have him on that fine line sometimes, and that's that really kind of adds to it, because then we see how easily it would be for him to slip and go back, and he always pulls himself away from it. So it's just fascinating.
So Jenny, what's the arc for you?
I actually have two, so I'm going to talk about the one that I still think is the most important. Very small. My arcs that I really like are small arcs. Joyce makes typical parenting threats, but Buffy follows through. And that to me was like, yeah, you all say that, get out of if you're going to do that, don't come back home, because you think you have the complete control and upper hand, and that your kid isn't going to say, well, all right, I'm going to do what you told me. Right? And Joyce is completely wrong in what she's doing, and we know it because we've seen what's going on. And Buffy is in the right for what she's doing, and we also know it because we've seen what goes on. And Joyce makes that parental ultimatum, which I grew up with a lot, by the way, which is why I think this resonates with me so much. The threat of, you don't have anywhere to go, right? And Buffy doesn't come home. And then we have the cool start of the next season where we see what she's doing to survive and how she saves people and comes back to herself, and Anne can I become Anne? And I love all of that. And then she gets home, and then Joyce has the nerve, and I do mean nerve, to blame Giles. I want to slap her. I'm like, that man's the only reason your daughter didn't leave, 2.5 seasons ago. Okay? That's her actual father figure. And you're doing what you and her real dad did, which is fight about whose fault it is that Buffy did something wrong. And I just think the parental arc, Joyce isn't a bad person. She's not an evil character. She's a single mother trying to do the best she can with a problem child. As far as anyone who isn't part of the Scooby Gang knows, Buffy is a handful and a problem. And Joyce never handles her right. And I thought it was good because I thought it was real. It was very believable that her mother would pull that. It was more believable that Buffy would leave and that mom would be completely floored by this actually happening and then turn around and blame the person least responsible. Oh, I blame you because you gave her all that self-confidence, right? So to me, that's a hugely important, very small, it's only like no more, you could not count it more than a 5 to 6 episode arc because finally she's back, right? And they're throwing a party and she's like, I was waiting tables in LA. Things are not great. Please, this is not time for anything like that. But I think it's super significant because it shows us that when push comes to shove, Buffy, no matter what she's faced with, will do the right thing and take her lumps. And Joyce and parents, no matter how much they're trying, cannot possibly always do the right thing. They're not dealing with all the information. And I really thought Joyce handled every single thing badly, and I think she was supposed to, so that we could see it. She still loves her daughter. Her daughter still loves her mother, right? They do get through all of that. But that, to me, that arc is hugely important.
Lee, what about you?
I'm kind of in agreement with Jenny about the short 5-6 season arcs. And for me, the mayor. Giving evil politicians a whole new image. He starts out, first of all, the actor was superb. Harry, and I cannot pronounce his last name. Starts out, you think he's, usual suburban, in it for himself, but, he's kind of got his heart in the right place. And then they start very selectively dropping in little hints that maybe Mr. Mayor has a, slightly gray side. Mm-hmm. Then they drop some more, and they drop in, a gang of vampires who work for him. And you're going, okay, something is going on. And I love the way he plays off other people. Just watching him work was a thrill. It was a well-constructed arc. It was good storytelling. It was well paced. And then he turns into a snake, and I'm going, okay. Just the whole thing. Beautifully done. We got to menace some of the in nice fashion some of the side characters. With a really satisfying conclusion. I mean, dropping a building on an evil snake. Who doesn't love that?
And his final comment of like, well, gosh.
Yeah, that is the best exit line I've seen in forever. It just was well done all the way through, and I loved it.
Well, plus, if I remember right, that's when they graduate and blow up the school, right?
That's the one.
It's that moment where it is that real point of transition. I mean, there's no question you're not going back to school now, but I mean, it was kind of that really thing of time to grow up a little bit more now, and that kind of a change I thought was a really fun wrap to that too.
As Oz said, let's take a minute. And they're like, because we blew him up, and he's like, no, high school, we survived it. And it's like, there it is. But then he's like, okay, and we're done.
Because I mean, I think that was in many ways that almost wrapped up the first part of the series, right?
Yes, exactly.
We're no longer students. We're no longer learning how to survive this. Mm-hmm. We've survived to this point. And I thought that was an interesting transition point from where, okay, now we have to be adults. whatever that means, right? So now we got to be adults in this world. And I thought that was an interesting midpoint to the arc. So I want to throw one out there. What one of the arcs did you look at and go, that could have been that just should have been better? What were they thinking that just should have been better? So Jenny, I'm going to start with you on that one.
Every single solitary thing to do with Xander. I hear one more. Xander's the heart of the team. Xander's an ass. Okay, leaving Anya at the altar. What is wrong with you? Okay, Xander is someone. He's like self-destructive in every way possible, and yet we're somehow supposed to look at this guy as this wonderful hero. One of my favorite Xander moments. He is standing by a car that he has driven. So he has keys and it's on and everything. And this is when he's doing his deep, meaningful, Riley isn't a rebound guy. Yeah, he is. But Riley's not a rebound guy and he's the right guy and you should run. I don't know. Why don't you put her in the car and floor it? Because she'll get there faster because she's not the Flash. She's the Slayer. She's not running any faster. We're not watching her like suddenly get the true love buzz and go 100 miles an hour. She's just running really fast. He could have gotten her there to that airstrip, flung the car in front of the plane and stopped it, but he doesn't because he's never going to do anything worthwhile. Yes, he talks Willow down when she's ready to kill people. Yes, he gives Buffy the big speech. But ultimately, he's such a... I liked the character originally, and by the end of the show, I'm just like, somebody stake this little weasel so he never has to come back. I liked every guy in the trio better than Xander. And those guys are technically evil. And yet I wanted, was it Warren? I can't remember the shortest one, the one who actually has the best heart. Why isn't he part of the Scooby Gang? Why doesn't he? Oh, we've got to take him with Xander. Yeah, but this kid actually has some courage and had Buffy at the edge of an abyss and did not shove her in. Right. So I don't know. Xander. And then Xander, how he treats Cordelia, how he treats Willow, how he treats Cordelia, how he treats Willow again, how he treats Anya. This guy's a jerk. This is like a poster boy for you don't really want this, girls. You probably don't really want Angel either. And you really, despite how sexy it is, you really don't want Spike. But you really, really don't want Xander.
I'm going to tell you what I thought they were going to do with him.
Uh-huh.
I thought they were going to make him a watcher.
I could have gotten behind that. Like all the sacrifice of, ultimately that makes sense because you can just walk away from anybody who loves you. You're a perfect watcher. Yeah.
And that kind of that level of whininess, right? That level of not getting involved at times, unless it was the absolutely no other choice. Had they done that, that to me would have given something. And that to me was the big miss for him.
I agree.
So Lee, how about you? What's one of the ones that you look at and you're going, oh, that should have been better?
Dawn.
Yeah.
From beginning to suppose it should have been her end through the whole thing. I despised that. Whiny. I couldn't, she wouldn't have even asked for Joyce's daughter. Joyce had more chutzpah than Dawn did. It goes back to if it's Tuesday, Dawn must be in trouble again. And just, she was a brat, and not in a nice way. I just it could have been handled, I think, with a different actress, with a different character character traits. Um, it could have been left out altogether. Um, it was just, I don't know what they were thinking. I probably don't want to know.
And they did it again with Connor and Angel because they didn't learn once. Let's bring another obnoxious teenager in and see how much you love it.
Yeah.
Wasn't that what killed the series?
Connor really.
Yeah.
Well, what they did with Cordelia's character was also unconscionable, but this is not an Angel panel, so I'll keep
We'll discuss
on-
that another day.
Yeah, I'll keep it all inside till the Angel panel comes up.
That's a rant
Yeah.
for a different day.
Yes.
But it just basically, they could have left it out altogether and
Mhm.
gone a different direction with the existing characters. And I think we could have still had hello there. Could still have had meaningful, however many seasons we had. Just get rid of that character. I would even be willing to put up with most of the Glory arc if the teenager wasn't in it.
Yeah. I don't blame the actress for that, by the way. I think that's all direction and writing. Because Michelle Trachtenberg is a good actress. I don't
Okay,
think she's being instructed to be as petulant and whiny as humanly possible.
I haven't seen her in anything I like, so
Mm.
I can't attest to that.
Yeah.
Well, and that was one that, because she was the key bloodline to the end of it, and I don't know if this is just something I created in my head as that would make sense in the story, or if that was what they actually plugged in there, was that Glory created her and wished her into being so she could get that piece of the bloodline, or if that was just she's just part of the bloodline thing. But there was something in the back of my head, and I don't know if this is just because I wrote it in the story, going, this would make more sense as to why she just magically appears.
The monks did it.
The monks make her.
That's right. I remember there was
Special
something.
magical monks.
Yeah.
It's something.
Because they had to protect the key, and so they made it in the form of a sister and sent it to Buffy.
A younger sister that she would do anything to protect.
That's right. Yep.
That's why it took
I remember there
Lori
was
so long
something
to
in
find
there.
her, because she didn't know who the key was.
Yeah.
Well, and thankfully then Star Wars went and borrowed that plot for 7, 8, and 9, but that's not this, that's not
this rant either.
That's not this rant either.
This is not the rant you're looking for.
Okay, quick question.
Quick question.
We need another one.
Oh,
Quickly.
no, Carol, go. It's your turn.
I get to do. This was something that could have been so good. It appealed to. I love when things go into different genres. They cross pollinate. In Supernatural, we had the British Men of Letters. In Buffy, we have the Initiative. Now, I love the concept of the Initiative. I loved the lab. I loved them capturing monsters to study and having their own little undercover SWAT team and everything. I really enjoyed all of that. The whole science fiction-y angle blending into the horror, angle. Riley, so bland. I mean, there's a reason they called him Captain Cardboard, okay? He's just bland. You can only think that Buffy was attracted to him because he wasn't a dangerous vampiric booty type. Okay, he was the antithesis of that.
He's boring, but he's really good looking.
He's got the muscles in all the right places.
Yes.
And I liked the idea of teacher is also the the head of the initiative. I mean, like Giles, the librarian is the watcher, so we have the teacher is the head of the initiative. That she turns out to be evil was a little bit of a letdown and stuff. And then, of course, culminating and the whole Adam thing. And I'm sorry, to drag Frankenstein in there was just one genre too many. Okay, they should have just stuck to the whole sci-fi thing. So I loved the finale for it when the monsters are loose and there's bodies flying through the air and they've got to get through there. And I mean, I loved that. That's what I wanted. But the whole initiative in general, just missed it. Had Riley been somebody actually powerful and charismatic, that would have helped. Had the teacher either been more evil, okay, so that she's more vivid, because she was not too exciting either. So either more vivid or also somehow, and then, she needed to be one thing or the other. And where they stuck her in the middle, that didn't work for me. And then, as I said, having it culminate in this, let's forget all the science and horror and pull out a Frankenstein monster. Even when he goes and meets the kid, I mean, come on. Just, oh, so close. I wanted it. I could taste it. And it just did not deliver.
I was wondering if they meant for everyone to be bland and innocuous. So, look, evil is done by people that aren't twirling a mustache and cackling while they stir a cauldron. But I agree with you. When Adam came on, I think my husband's reaction was this. Right?
Oh, and let's not forget Riley's best friend, who's so freaking jealous of Buffy. You have to think, did he have a gay crush on Riley? Did he want to be the one boinking Riley and not Buffy? Because he was frothing at the mouth about, Riley and Buffy being together. And that was just what?
I would have been okay. It would have been more interesting.
If he actually had that motivation and they had played on it.
If they said, hey,
absolutely. But they didn't. And so it's this it just comes across as this really kind of twisted, thing. And then, of course, he's a monster and he's all yeah, I'm going to get you now, girly. And it was just oh my God.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's the one that did not cut it for me.
So one of the things that I will credit Buffy for, especially for the period of time, was they were giving not only the heroes arcs, but they also gave their villains, antagonists outside of that first season, but they gave them an arc. You saw actual development in the villains. You saw motive. You saw understanding as to how plans and machinations were going to play out. So, Lee, what about the villains' arcs, the antagonist arcs? Sometimes we saw them shift from bad to good to bad to good to bad to good, like a spinning quarter. Other times we saw just plain old, good old-fashioned, I just need a good villain. So, whose villain arc did you think that they did well, or antagonist?
Well, I've already mentioned the mayor. I think my second choice for that particular thing might be antagonist. Coming up fairly blank.
I have two. You want to?
Yeah, I have two too.
Yeah, can you lend me one?
All right. Phone a friend. Phone a friend.
Phone a friend. Which one of us do you want to go
first? All right,
first?
Carol, you get to go first.
Am I giving her one? Or am I
That's
just
entirely up to y'all.
You go ahead.
We'll charge Lee up, and she'll remember.
Okay. All right. So I have two. But I'm only going to really talk about one, but I'm going to mention the other one, and then anybody can have at her. I love Drusilla. Okay. The drama,
yes.
the backstory. We know all about her. We learn so much about her. And really it's kind of not her fault she's a crazy vampire. But then the real one I think I'm going to go for is Faith. Okay, and Faith comes in good, rough around the edges, certainly, but on the side of good. And unfortunately, and again, in many ways, not her fault. The ultimate decision is her fault, but there's a lot of factors. You talk about nature versus nurture. This girl has grown up rough. Becoming a slayer has been a redemption for her. She has a purpose and she gets to, smack things around, which is also good for her. But she's been traumatized, as certainly Buffy has been too, but Buffy had people to help her with that. And Faith did not. So Faith was traumatized. She's, very let's PTSD, and then is manipulated and used. And by the time she gets through all of that, she's ripe for the mayor. And this is where she compliments the mayor so well, because the mayor does have a very nurturing side. And here he has a slayer who is emotionally really needy. And he takes to her and he brings her in and he, gives her milk and cookies and fancy knives and a dress. And I mean, he gives her all of this stuff that she's never had and is not used to. And she's just like, wow, somebody gives a shit about me. But of course, ultimately he's manipulating her too. Although it does come down to her decision when she kills the man and she says, you don't get it, Buffy. I don't care. That's the fundamental difference. And that sends Faith down the bad path. The fork in the road. She takes the left, or maybe she takes the right, and it's not good. And she goes through all of the stuff with the mayor, becomes his tool, ultimately has that huge face-off with Buffy. Oh God, and that's such a tremendous fight. And she's been spying and doing all this stuff, and ultimately they catch her and send her away. And we think, okay, well, she's off in prison now somewhere, but no, then she comes back. She's in the coma. We see her one last go round because she does the body switch thing with Buffy, but then she comes back in season 7 and she's back on a slayer path. I don't want to say she learned her lesson or anything, but she came to accept what she had done and the consequences of it, and the fact that really her destiny is more than that, and is able to then pitch in on that final fight, against the evil from underneath there. So that's a really interesting villain's arc. We love her, we hate her. She's funny. She's funny as heck sometimes. She deflowers Xander, and then she's like, okay, bye. And he's just like, what? I don't even know what happened. And like at the end, and she has this tentative little thing that's building between her and Robin, the principal, who was the hunter's son, and it's very different for both of them. And they're sort of being very hesitant, but you can see the attraction, and you can see why, besides the fact that they're just both enormously attractive people, that you can see why the one is holding an attraction for the other. And so, again, a lot of nuance, a lot of backstory. You can't just kind of ever take her on face value, because even in the beginning, when we see that she's very brash and very, arrogant and stuff, you can still see that beneath it, it's because she's a needy little girl. She is a whole lot of facade over a whole big gaping hole of a person. And therefore, she's just fascinating throughout. You're never just like, oh, she's cartoony evil. No, she's got a lot going on, and it's really interesting to watch her go through these changes and evolutions.
Jenny?
I have two. They're both small arcs. Nathan Fillion as Caleb.
Ah,
Oh,
yes.
Terrifying. I love Nathan Fillion. Uh, I, my daughter, I used to joke, it's like, okay, if it's Nathan Fillion or Billy Zane or Ben Affleck playing a demon, we're done. Sorry, world. We've gone. We're on their side, right? But even with that, he's terrifying. He is utterly, unbelievably terrifying. And it's because some of it is because he just believes. And there are a lot of people out there like that are out in the world, and they are sadly very easy to find. And he is just a terrifying example of someone who, it's when he says, this is really important to me, when he does, this is meaningful to me, when he and evil are doing their little weird thing. Oh, creepiest man on the planet right there. In just like, what, 3 episodes? I don't think he gets more than 3. Really terrifying. The other is, I mentioned them earlier, the trio. I really like the trio. They each have done something Buffy's had to fix. They didn't like that she fixed it, or they did like that she fixed it, but still, I could have been somebody, right? The whole, it's Warren, he's the guy, right? That was a great episode. And he is the most, normal person, so to speak, of the 3, but I really like the trio. And my favorite episode with them is when they make Buffy go into the other world, where she's in a mental institution, because after that episode, you, the viewer, can never really know, because there's her mother and father, both actors we've seen before, visiting her in the mental institution where she's finally come out of it. It's like, please come home, please come home. And then it's like, oh, no, they need me. And she goes back. At that point, I'm like, oh my God, maybe it is. Maybe the trio isn't, what if that reality is real and everything else is just in Buffy's head? Some of which would make sense, because a lot of the things that happen, you would go, it's more like a teenage girl fantasy than something else. So I thought that episode in particular was really good, but you don't get it and you can't believe it unless you see how the trio, what they've done and how they get together. And their little multi-season arc, I think pretty much culminates in that. And then we get one of the trio who's suddenly on Buffy's side. I don't remember why, but he needed a job. He needed work, I guess.
I really loved the episode where they had the contest, where they each had to affect Buffy.
Yeah.
So she's working at the magic box with the hand, and the hand is like snapping at her with the tongues, but she can't get out of the loop until she satisfies the customer. And we see it over and over. That episode was just so good.
Yeah, they're really, really good.
All right, Lee.
Jim, I have a quick one. From the time Willow got to college, pretty much to the end of it, I didn't like her much. Part of it was, I don't know, she was losing her job, as it were. There's a line in, I think, first season in college. Any girl with a period and a spice rack thinks she's a witch. And then they go right in, and that's what Tara does. That's what Willow does. She's going in, like, she's basically walking into the middle of things untrained. And it didn't feel right. It didn't play right. The only saving grace about that was Tara. And that centered her on some things about the craft. But I'm not saying that Warren didn't warrant being flayed alive, But even with the provocation of Tara's being killed, if she were walking the right path, she wouldn't have done that.
Mhm.
And I didn't care for the Tara that went into college and through all of that. Um, it just set wrong. It's an arc that didn't work for me.
Mhm.
So I want to hit. There's one of the arcs that I want to make sure we spend a little time on, because I think it is, considering where it was and how it fell. I think it's too important not to address. And this is the end of the Glory debacle when Buffy dies, and then the arc of resurrection. Because
Like,
one of the things that I think that the series did well is the character development didn't show just the I'm building skills. It didn't just show the I'm building knowledge. I know how to deal with these things. I think that when we look at all of the Scooby Gang and everybody else, it was, you got to watch PTSD manifest in a lot of different ways. Even though they didn't call it that, they didn't treat it like that. But I mean, even starting at the beginning, you can see that in Giles, where he's starting from. You can already tell, been there, done that, and he was not equipped for that, much less to lead a group of kids through this. But that particular arc, that moment of, I'm okay dying because that's the only way I get peace, and to see the beginning of season 6 clawing out of the ground and like, what the actual, why? I had peace finally, and what the hell did you think you were doing? Right? I thought that piece of the arc, and picking up there for the last 2 seasons, that motion, you almost had to die to transform to step into that final power. So I don't know who wants to take that notion of that. Okay, Jenny.
Boy, are her friends stupid. Okay, I'm sitting there like, she's going to be in hell for killing demons. You go to heaven. How dumb are these people? Okay, this was absolute massive writer convenience. We thought we were canceled. Okay, every time Buffy dies, it's because they think they're canceled. First season, they don't know they're being picked up. Buffy gets to die and come back. Oh, right now, Buffy gets to die because we think the show is over. So
Right.
now we get the show again. So we have to do something super special. I didn't mind any of the resurrection. I thought all of that was handled really well. Buffy's reaction, you were in heaven, you're dragged back here, which is hell. Hell, yeah, no, had no problem. Seriously, Willow's sitting there earnestly saying, she's got to be in hell. She's killed so many people. No, she hasn't killed anybody. Faith killed one person, and y'all made this like the biggest deal in the world. But Buffy has only killed demons and vampires and evil. She's like Joan of frickin' Arc. She's going up to heaven. And how can you, the people that have done this with her for all this time, think that she would go anywhere else? I could have handled that if they all thought, of course she's in heaven, and then some little slime ball comes by and said, no, she's in hell, right? And puts doubt in their minds. I could have bought that. But the whole premise of we're too stupid to think about this logically, I'm like, these people need to die. She needs to come back and just kill them all because they're too stupid to live. So the whole premise is predicated on people who previously you would think are smart enough to have figured this out. What was Cordelia? Is it just because Cordelia wasn't there? And I don't remember anymore, but I think she'd already left for Angel.
Yeah.
So is it because Cordelia is not there to say, what the hell is wrong with you people? Why isn't Willow smart? Why isn't Mr. Heart of the team smart enough to figure this out? Okay. Nobody figures this out. Why isn't Giles? Okay.
See,
I was just like, my head was exploding through all of that, of the writer convenience to make characters who up till this point would never have thought that she's going to go to hell because she's killed so many people. Angels kill demons. They live in heaven, right? Just the logic behind it still pisses me off, to be honest. And I love the rest of the arc. I particularly love, like we all do, the musical episode. But are you kidding me? You had to write it so that people were so dumb. The people that were not dumb until this very moment. And I just think they could have inserted a character who felt like they had authority and who maybe pick a priest, okay, grab some guy in a cassock and have him come by. No, murder is murder, my children. If he killed her, she's killed anything, she is going to hell. Okay, give them something to create the disbelief, the doubt. But the firm belief that Buffy sacrificed herself, wait a minute, to save her sister and the world. People who do that, wait for it, go to heaven. Period. Okay, so the whole arc is built on your friends are really stupid. I'm sorry, Buffy, your friends are morons, and you should have dumped these people like, I don't know, 6 seasons ago. Oh, we're only on season 5. Still, you should have dumped them 6 seasons ago because they're idiots. So I don't feel strongly about it or anything.
Hadn't
See,
noticed.
I always thought that they thought she was in hell because it was a hell dimension that she sealed, that her death sealed the hell dimension. And
they
so
talk about how all the murders she's done as part of it.
I totally somehow didn't ever get that.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't a problem because I'm like, oh, because she sealed the hell dimension and that's why they think she's in hell, So that way, at least it made sense why she's in hell because it was the hell dimension.
I'm still with the someone who seals a hell dimension goes to heaven. Right?
So let's and I
work.
And I agree. Like many times, there were parts of the setup that got blown. But
the rest of it was great.
But let's look at the rest of the 2 years, right? That notion of, okay, I'm here, I'm back. I've got to deal with this. I've got a house full of teenagers. I've got a house full of slayers, and that's going to lead into my last question. But any other thoughts about? Because that last 2 seasons really was materially different. It was a much more mature show. It was a much more. It was that moment of we're not screwing around here. There really are material costs, material risks. Yes, we may have been sending demons to hell, but we can die here, right? And it's that ultimate notion of we're in a war. This is what can happen. And that to me was the biggest shift of those last two seasons. So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on those last couple of seasons.
I hated the fact that there was that they activated everybody. Suddenly, one Slayer is a myth. One Slayer draws on mythology. A house full of untrained, or just started to train. Everybody with issues. It's like I would go nuts in a house like that just from the fact there are all these silly young women around. It's just, it didn't follow the way it should. They just kept bringing in more people and throwing them at a situation. To me, just about the only scene that I had any enjoyment at all was the one where Buffy's been sent away. Spike finds her and, for want of a better word, gives her self-confidence back. It's a beautiful scene. It was well done. And it was about the only thing I liked about that season. I'm going to get
I'll do counterpoint.
say again.
I'll do the counterpoint to that.
Love
There was a lot of the stuff about the House Full of Slayers that, let's just say, I hated Kennedy. So, like, I hated Kennedy. I hated how they shoved Kennedy into being the leader. I hated how they shoved her into Willow's arms. I just felt that that was all bad. Kennedy aside, House Full of Girls, you know what? That's just what Buffy was like in season 1.
Mhm.
You know, she was somewhat trained, but she was thinking about dates and boys and snacks and hanging out with her friends. And that's what these girls are doing because they don't know yet. All they know is somebody came to them and said, you have to come with us because otherwise you're going to get killed because you're part of this possible, dynastic thing. And they're like, okay, I don't want to die, so I'll go with you. And they showed us the reality of, like, we need sleeping bags, we need food, we need pillows, we need bandages, because all of a sudden they're equipping this big group. And I actually really enjoyed how they took, there's only one Slayer and then turned it into, like, everybody who could be a Slayer became a Slayer. Like, I loved the little separate scenes, like there's that young girl playing baseball and she picks up her head and you can just see, the power has suffused her, and the woman who's being beaten and stuff. I just loved the sense of that power flowing out into the world and into all these people, and creating like this network, that ultimately will help keep the world, a whole lot safer, and not require as much of the sacrificing as we've seen Slayers in the past, because we haven't just seen Buffy. We've seen, Robin's mother and, a bunch of Slayers through the years, through the flashbacks. We saw Kendra. We saw, Faith didn't get killed, but certainly Faith, went through a lot of damage. And we've seen the sacrifices Slayers have made. But you know what? If there's a bunch of them, it's not going to hurt one so deeply, and I really liked that sense of that network and that power flowing out. I hated that they kicked Buffy out of her house. I had a really hard time with that, and even on rewatches, every time I see that, I'm just like, WTF, people, come on. It's, first of all, her house, okay? You guys move out. But as far as the girls themselves all trying to, like, figure out which end is up and what do I do with the stick, and it was a little annoying sometimes, but it was, to me, not unrealistic. Where you're taking these raw people who have no clue about anything, who have never heard about vampires last week, and all of a sudden they're in this deadly war to save the world from this horde of them under the earth. So that's the counterpoint.
I'm with you. I liked that they did it. To me, it brought the whole, why the hell have you just allowed one this whole time? Right? Because, then we have to have too big a cast. And I get Lee's point on, one is a myth, but it feels like, that episode felt, when the power starts going out to everybody, because Buffy's figured out how to make it go out, it's sort of like, this is how it always should have been, right? This is how it always should have been. There should never just been one. It should be whoever has the right makeup, should have done it. And then you look back and go, well, it's 3 dudes or whatever controlling this. And they just like the idea of one chick having to do it all, right? So I'm glad that came very near the end, because if that had come earlier, you'd be like, why am I even watching this show?
It wouldn't have had the impact. It's because we've seen Buffy go through all that struggling and all that death, and everybody else who has struggled and died and lost people, that makes the fact of that creation meaningful.
Yeah.
And powerful.
Agree.
So I'm going to throw in the one part about that it bothered me, and I will tell you what this is. We saw, and I'll come back to why, but we saw a surge of power go through a whole ton of people. We're making an assumption that all of them, they're getting a power surge. They have no training, they have no knowledge, they have no understanding, they have no guidance. And so the first thought that crossed my mind was, oh, we just created a bunch of supervillains because we've seen that precedence in Faith.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an argument to be made as to why power gets channeled, because how many can you train? How many can you manage? And how many of those are going to go and say, I've already got the power and you scurry on. I'm not going to go do that. There's no infrastructure for it. The Watchers are all but decimated anyway. We look at all of this. That was the moment where I thought this was both a brilliant way of showing this is a new day, a new dawn, good coming into the world. Same time I had the thought of how many of them are going to go off the rails because you just gave power to someone that doesn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of leads me to the last kind of question and thought I've got. And that is the overarching arc of the Slayer, right? The mythology of the Slayer. One of the stories that we only saw one time was, of course, with the first Slayer, right? That notion of you're seeing that the universe is imbuing a power because it's like, this other thing exists. We need something to counterbalance. And I thought that was an interesting way of bringing it in. But the one thing I don't think we ever saw well was that accumulation of power and knowledge and skill through the ages. We get that hint of, oh, you just got the power, so ta-da! You get this magical upload of all of these things, but that can't be entirely it, because then a Slayer would be magically born with all the power, all the knowledge. They wouldn't need the training and all the rest of that. It's just that now you've got the physical and the spiritual capabilities to manage that. And as we were just talking about, leading into that last moment where, oh, we're going to push this out to everybody that can have that power. Well, what does that mean going forward? Right? So did y'all have any thoughts in terms of that the overarch of the notion of the Slayer? Because I thought that was one of those things that was an interesting mythology, how it got built over the years. But I think that there were parts that they wrote in when it was convenient and they needed it for the story.
I think it's interesting that when we meet Kendra talks about having been trained for it her whole life. Mm-hmm. Like in her neck of the woods, it had been noted that she would have been a potential, essentially, right? And she had trained and prepared and everything so that when she came up in the, when it was her turn at bat, she was ready for it. Whereas, that part never happened with Buffy. It's kind of like the Greatest American Hero, where he's like, what? There's a manual? And Buffy wasn't prepared. I have to say, I never extrapolated it further as far as everyone getting the power to like, what did that mean? I got carried away on the moment and I just left it there because it ended. I didn't explore.
That's the evil writer in me that goes and says, but what's next?
Yeah. But no, it's certainly interesting that like I say, Kendra had a very different experience becoming a Slayer than Buffy and apparently Faith, because Faith, didn't get any of that stuff either.
She basically was natural born kick-ass.
Yeah.
If I may, that's where they got off the path in myth making, was when, they sent out raw power, but they didn't send out the discipline. And lack of discipline is why you get superhero villains.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just think that realistically, writers' rooms change. So whoever wrote the Kendra episode probably was not around much because that person had some damned logic going for them. And we never see that again. Kendra is the only Slayer we ever hear about that actually had pre-prep. And you start going, well, what, they die all Slayers die all the time. Why isn't there a Harry Potter school for Slayers? I mean, Harry Potter wasn't even out then, but you know what I mean? Where's the Slayer college? Where's the Slayer school? The boarding school that somebody very British comes and whisks your daughter away to a great boarding school. She's going to be so prepped. My goodness, any college will want her, right? And scholarship, right? Mm-hmm. And boom, your kids want. And where's Slayer school? Why is Slayer school, in the end of the 7th episode in Buffy's house? Or why don't we go to Kendra's home village and put the Slayer school there? Because those people know what's going on, right? Apparently they are really good and they should be running Slayer school, but there isn't one. And so there's a lot of disconnects. I mean, in a long running series, you're always going to hit it. Continuity is never going to be 100%, however much you want it to be. But
last I checked, we don't have continuity in reality either, so it's
really
fine.
Don't. We try really hard. But I mean, I agree with both Lee and Carole and you. It's exciting that the power comes out, but I get Lee's point. Well, it's exactly what you're saying. So you just created a bunch of women who have no idea why they can now punch someone in the face and watch him go flying. But boy, does that feel great. I'm going to keep doing it because there's nobody there saying, oh, wait, you have a higher purpose, my lass. Where were you, 10, 15, 5, 1 year ago, right? When you could have put me in Slayer school. So, I mean, I don't think it was obviously something that as they're going along, you have to up the ante. You have to keep it going in a long running series. And so you can't just go back to, it's just a demon, really, because we've killed 1,000. So why is this one more special? So you have to do stuff, and they don't always stick their landings well. But since it was the last part of the last season, I was okay as long
as they get a bye.
I was okay as long as Nathan Fillion was on screen. Once he wasn't, I was just like.
Well, and again, it's that feel good of, the power's out there. There's more protectors. There's more.
Yeah.
But it's that having been there, right? We've all seen the new series that starts where it's hundreds or thousands of people just got magical powers. Not all of them are going to do what they're supposed to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, that's where we get supervillains. And I remember telling somebody that at the time, and I got a bunch of unhappy looks. But to me, that was one of the things about the arc. Is you've taken away the choice, you've taken away the myth of the one and gone to the myth of the army of heroes. Fun thing to do. But again, you're never going to have rounded there's no resources, right, to round them all up and do all the things that have to happen. Because logistics and resources, and they've destroyed most of those institutions, or they've destroyed themselves that would have been able to do those things. Mm-hmm. So now you've turned loose a lot of people in the world that aren't trained, that are just cannon fodder. And that was one of my biggest things about, you've got all these pseudo slayers that don't have power, that are going out to do stuff, and we're not seeing the body counts rack up.
You clearly took that thought line way farther than
they could have done another season with
I was just in the happy moment.
Yeah. Well, they could have.
I'm over. Here to be the joy killer.
Done. Buffy can leave Sunnydale.
That was my gig, Jim.
Because again, I think that there was a lot of things that could have been done. And again, it's like anything else. We tell the story from the perspective of the hero and what did we want to do, but it's always dangerous to say, and what happened next? So, anything else?
I feel like we can't not at least mention Angel and Angelus.
Yeah.
We had the big romantic story of Angel and Buffy, the whole way it got ripped away from her, and yet forced her to grow up a bunch right then and there. We got to see, how evil he really was. I mean, when he kills Willow's fish, that's somebody who's really taking the time to enjoy, you know, uh, and, I know a lot of people who have a hard time with the way Angel finally just says, well, I'm just going to leave because we can't be together.
Mhm.
And of course he did that because he was going off to his own show.
Right.
So he had to leave. And but there are relationships like that where somebody has to make the move. You either, have to commit to it or walk away from it. And, in this case, he walked away. And, good, bad, Buffy had to learn how to stand on her own without him. Because, hey, you have a big, powerful vampire fighting next to you. That's pretty cool. But, he's not there anymore. You're on your own. And that was also really, part of the whole college thing where she was a big girl now and on her own and dealing with not just Slayer stuff, but, relationship issues and Parker and all kinds of stuff.
Let's talk about Parker. Boy,
Parker is an object lesson to my daughter.
Parker's an object lesson to everybody, but Parker is where I started looking and going, I don't like some of the writing. Buffy is very, very, very formed by her men. She's this great heroine when Angel is heroic. She's a mess when he's not. She's great when she and Riley are doing it together. She's an utter, complete mess because of Parker. It's like, you're the Slayer. She came really hard in the balls. He'll think twice. Okay, right? And instead she's moping about this guy. I get it. Okay, we've all had our hearts broken. But how can you mope about this guy when you had Angel? This is not a guy to mope about. This is a guy to, again, kick him hard in the tenders and move on. You've used me. Boom, right? He's really there so Riley can look heroic and wonderful. And, because Riley will punch Parker in the face for us. Thank you, but Buffy could have punched Parker in the face. The story I really liked, and the kid's only in the first episode of the season, was the kid that she connected with when they're both lost, and he keeps a copy of Catcher in the
Pedro
Rye.
Pascal.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking. I really, really wanted somehow that she could have saved him, and she can't. The only way she can save him is to kill him. And I was really glad when she really just cleaned that nest out hard. But most of her college years are miserable, and the only person paying any attention to anybody is Spike, where he comes in, it's like, Willow's hanging on by a thread. What is wrong with you people? She is not okay, right? All of this stuff is going on, and all of it's very college and everything else, but at the same time we get Adam and we get Parker and we get all these other things that I think are in some ways are very realistic, but I didn't necessarily enjoy watching the character have to drag through the mud as much as she got dragged in the college, the after high school episode. So that's about where, for me, the writing, I started really side-eyeing the writing a lot. I still like the show, started to really hate Xander. And by the end, I'm just like, why does anybody like him? Back to Xander again. Yeah. I liked him at the start. I loathed him by the end. I just wanted him to fall into the Hellmouth, slip into the Hellmouth and not, we couldn't save him. We're so sorry. Because Jim's suggestion if he becomes a watcher would have been great. That would have totally fixed everything and that didn't happen. So I feel like they left a lot of, in the focus on the a million slayers, they left a lot of threads that could have tied up a lot better per character, and they didn't do it. And that was their choice, their right. It's not how I would have done it.
Yeah.
I mean, since we're all authors, we have views on how we would have done it, and it's not how I would have done it. So
yeah. I personally feel like the first 3 seasons were mwah.
Yeah.
And after that, it was still worth watching. It still had a lot of value. There was still a lot of great stuff, but not as consistently.
Yeah, I agree.
We had to take some of the bad with the good.
We got Hush, which was a fabulous episode.
Yes.
Now we got Once More with Feeling, another fabulous episode. But
we had to suffer with the Double Meat Palace.
Yes, right. And we have to. When you look at the first 3 seasons, there's a lot in there. Darla is terrifying, and all this other stuff. I agree. The first 3 seasons, great. Season 4, okay, yay, right? Yay, you've succeeded, and blah, blah, blah. And then we get Dawn, and yay, we're done because Buffy's died to save the world. And oh, damn, we're back again. And while there's stuff that's good in all of it, and there's a lot of character growth, the character who I think goes to the most growth is actually Willow. But the show's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, not Willow the Teenage Witch. So watching Willow get all this growth while Buffy gets to get dragged through the mud was a little disappointing. But
any
overall,
last thoughts? Because we've got a ton of arcs we haven't even touched on, but we can't go all night.
We could, but we shouldn't, I think is really the correct statement.
That's the subtle hint.
I need more Irish if we're going to do that.
You're going to have to share. All right. Well, why don't we put a bow on this one, and we'll have to see about continuing in a part 2. But until then, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys. Website, social media. What's a book they need to go add to that to be read pile? That'll let them maybe see what happens when they push a little power out into the universe. But, so, Carole.
So, as Carole Stokes, you can find me on Facebook, on Continual Panels, and lurking around supernatural places. But as Ellis Colton, I am an MM romance writer. All of my books are available on Smashwords and Amazon. All of my social media links, including the freshly restored TikTok and the newly christened Blue Sky, are on my social media link site, which is elliscolton.carrd.co. Feel free to check out my latest book, The Case of Thistledown House, which is a spooky haunted house MM romance, now available on Amazon. Sequel in the works.
Oh, good, because I wanted more. Yeah, I got it.
You shall be getting it.
Jenny?
GiniKoch.com. I'm all over Facebook, X, Twitter, Blue Sky, Pinterest. My most recent release came out from Ginger Blue Publishing November. Is the first in my mystery suspense series with Phoebe Bayless, our Santa Paloma Mysteries, Something Wicked. My next upcoming release, also from Ginger Blue, is the trade paperback release of my novel series, the novel Set in the Old West, by me, right, is A.E. Stanton. And that's Legend of Belladonna, Natural Born Outlaws, which is part 1 of Legend of Belladonna. And then in relationship to this topic, as Gemma Chase, Ginger Blue has re-released my collection, The Disciple and Other Stories of the Paranormal. So you can get my different takes on different paranormal as Gemma Chase, who I think is a goth girl who likes blood and chocolate. So take it from there.
Lee?
You can find me at Facebook, I'll need you to DM me with a friend's request. I've got it friends only right now for obvious reasons. I'm also on X, Twitter, a little anymore. Blue Sky. Um, just do a search on my name. It's Lee_Harphaven.net. My website is harphaven.net, and there's a link from there to my online store, and all sorts of nifty information about the bibliography and what I get into. And among other things, you can get autographed copies of Bard's Road, which is a collection of my stories, four of which had never seen print before. So that's where you find me.
And you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentialsworkshops.com, creatingprose.com, and of course here at Continual, assuming that nobody sticks a stake through my chest. You never know.
We haven't yet.
Give it time. Give it time.